So, what will the real estate market do in 2022, specifically in Atlanta? Will it crash and burn? Will it continue to reach all-time new heights? In this video, I'm going to break it down into 4 questions you should ask yourself and what I think the answers are. And that's coming up right now. Hey everyone, welcome back to Living in Atlanta. This YouTube channel is all about helping you understand what it's like to live, work, and play in the Atlanta area. My name is Mark Brenner and I lead the Living in Atlanta team here in Atlanta, Georgia. If you are thinking of relocating here from out of state, or if you're looking to buy or sell a home in the state of Georgia, we would love to hear from you. We help people relocate here and buy and sell real estate in Georgia all the time. We absolutely love it. You can book an appointment with myself directly using the link in the description below. You can email me, call me, text me, whatever you want to do, but don't hesitate. If you have questions, you want to plan, connect, and discuss your possible move or purchase or sale of real estate, we would love to hear from you. Okay, so is the market going to crash in 2022? Are prices going to come down? Is it still going to be extremely difficult for buyers to find a home? I'm sure you've asked yourself these questions. Everyone is talking about and wondering and trying to predict what the market will do, especially since we've been on such a hot run with the strength of the market over the last few years and especially the last year. So as we round the corner into 2022, I thought it might be helpful to give my thoughts in what I project the market to do over the next year. I'm going to go through 4 simple questions that you're probably asking yourself, or you should be asking yourself, what I think the answers to those questions are, and hopefully it helps you make a great decision for you and your family. And hopefully, like all of my videos, the main goal is just to provide you with value. So let's get right into it. What will the real estate market in 2022 be like? So the first one related to this topic is, will interest rates go up next year? Now, obviously, this is very important to a purchaser because interest rates are going to have a massive impact on the overall value you get in a home. Okay, you are borrowing probably the largest amount of money you will ever borrow in your life. And so it's really important to understand what kind of interest rate you'll be looking on that amount you're borrowing, because you're signing probably a 30-year loan, sometimes a 15-year loan. So you're really locked in long term. You need to understand what the implications are for rising or falling interest rates. Now, of course, no one knows for sure. If you ask a lender, they will be able to tell you what some predictors are, what they hear in the industry among colleagues, but they do not have a crystal ball. So these are all projections, and that really goes for every topic we're talking about today. Speaking with my expert lender partners and colleagues, it does seem, in addition to researching this topic, the general consensus is that interest rates are going to hold pretty much steady where they're at until the end of 2022. So Q3, Q4 2022, most lenders do anticipate a small increase in interest rates to the tune of about 0.25%, and some predict that will continue to rise by 0.25% each quarter until we level off and adjust for the rising inflation rates. Okay, so obviously we don't know where that's going to end, but the most common response that I've gotten and that I've seen is that you're going to have a small increase at the beginning of next year. So what you'll probably be looking at this time next year is a 0.25% increase from where we're at now, which is still around 3%, slightly below 3%, depending on the type of loan and your qualifications. Now, extrapolating that out further, it is predicted in 2023, we will eventually reach 1 full percentage point from where we're at now, an increase. Okay, so we're gonna be holding steady for a while where we're at now. We'll have a small increase at the end of 2022, and we will have small increases until we land roughly about 1% increase at 2023, probably towards the end of where we're at now. Now, it's very important to remember that interest rates are still historically at all-time lows. For those of you who are around in the 70s, I'm sure you remember in some capacity when we had interest rates into the high single digits and even double digits for some periods of time. Okay, a 7-8% interest rate was fairly common for a while there, and it did go into double digits for quite a while as well, especially in the 70s. So, we're all very used to in the last few years these, 3%, less than 3%, less than 4% interest rates. And sometimes it can be really easy to just want lower and lower, but you need to realize historically, interest rates have been very low. So even with a full 1% increase in 2023, we are still going to have historically low interest rates. This is very important because you really want to borrow money cheaply, because this is going to have a major impact on your finances as you finance that loan over 30 or 15 years. If you can lock into a low interest rate on a 30-year loan, you've basically locked in borrowing money very cheaply, as opposed to waiting or purchasing at another time when interest rates are much higher, and then you've locked in money more expensively. So obviously the goal is the lowest rate possible. Now, the second most common question I get asked with relation to this topic is, will prices come down? Okay, we've seen a massive increase, one of the largest in history overall across all markets in pricing for housing in the US, partially because of inflation, a large part, especially in the Atlanta market, due to supply, simple supply and demand. We do not have enough supply to currently match the increased demand for housing, and so prices have risen about 17-18% year over year, which is dramatic. So will prices come down? Should I wait for prices to come down to buy? And honestly, as a realtor who's in the trenches every day, I do think going into 2021, we're continuing to have strong appreciation. Prices will rise a degree, and I think as we increase our supply over time, the sellers will not necessarily be able to command the premium prices that they have been able to in such a short supply market that we've been over in the last year. Now, a really important thing to note when you're wondering about how prices are going to change is how much more important interest rates are than a drop in price, okay? You can wait 1 year to buy in hopes of getting a home for, let's say, $10,000 less than you would at this current time. That's a very minimal impact in comparison to a small change in your interest rate. Okay, remember, your interest rate impacts you over 30 years in most cases. So that's going to have a much more dramatic impact than a one-time discount of say $5,000 or $10,000 that some consumers are hoping to get by waiting. So yes, prices may come down a little bit, or rather they will not increase as dramatically as they have over this last year. Appreciation is still going to be very strong, but in no way do I think you should hold off in hopes of slightly lower prices. It makes way more sense to me to lock up cheap money over 30 years than it does to get a $5,000 or $10,000 discount off the sticker price. So you need to keep all factors in mind when looking at how this purchase will impact your finances over a long period of time. All right, the third question, probably the most common question I get with regards to the real estate market. It's a very hot topic, buzzword issue that a lot of people like to throw out there. Will we have another housing market collapse like we did in 2008? Now, this question fascinates me, okay? And the reason why this question fascinates me is because I don't think this question even existed before 2008. I don't think before 2008 people were wondering when the next housing market collapse was going to happen. Now, the reason that's significant is because I think the housing market collapse had a major impact on the psyche of the generations who were most impacted by it, including the younger generations who saw what it did to their parents. Okay, somehow because that happened, I think most people today assume every few years, it's cyclical, we will have a complete market crash. Now, yes, real estate is cyclical. You do have fluctuations in price as you have fluctuations in supply and demand. But the idea that a complete housing market collapse is cyclical and is just a matter of time is kind of absurd to me. If you look at the history of the housing market in the US, we've really only had three major dips. We've had the Great Depression in the late 20s, which obviously massively impacted housing. Okay, we had big housing problems in the 70s, not as bad as 29 or 08. Because of massive inflation, we were taken off the gold standard. Okay, there were a lot of things financially that happened in the 70s to drive interest rates and to really make it more difficult than it ever had been to purchase a home. So you did have a significant lull during that time. And then of course in 2008, you had fraud basically take place. You had massive fraud by the banks, by lenders, which resulted in people purchasing homes they couldn't afford. And when the economy dipped a little bit, they lost their jobs, couldn't make those mortgage payments, and it triggered a huge chain reaction and a housing market collapse. Okay, there are really no reasons why that has to happen, at least identically to that again. Okay, obviously we've had a lot of laws change with regards to lending. If you've refinanced or made a purchase recently, you know how much documentation they're asking for now. They're sticklers about a lot of this stuff in ways that they weren't before. So there are a lot more restrictions, and if you look specifically at the market factors in Atlanta, Georgia, okay, say that you do have some sort of real estate market dip, you gotta get market specific, right? Because although things do trend similar in major cities, the Atlanta market is completely different from, the market in Montana or California, okay? There are different economic factors affecting different areas of the country. If you look at the Southeast, Georgia and Atlanta in particular, we have a few things really going for this that I think would serve as a buffer for a major collapse like people are worried about. What are those things? So a diverse economy. We are not beholden to one industry, one type of job industry like coal or energy or something. We have very diverse economy here. So if one sector takes a hit, the entire market is not going to necessarily take a major hit, okay? We have a relatively low cost of living. People coming from California or cities on the East Coast, their dollar goes a lot further down here, which is a huge incentive to relocate. We have a mild climate. We have a lot of job opportunity. And we also have a lot of amenities that people are interested in. So there are a lot of really strong factors that, for instance, a real estate investor would look for if they're investing in a market over time. So because of all those factors that I just mentioned, the way Atlanta is growing, the sheer number of people moving here each year, the diversity of the economy, the massive shortage in supply that we're still trying to catch up to, really is going to prevent any sort of drastic drop like we saw in 2008, outside of factors that we don't know of, because they're behind closed doors. That is my opinion. Yes, real estate is cyclical. I'm not saying it's going to be gangbusters for the rest of time. Definitely not. But I would encourage you to maybe get out of your head that 2008 happens every 10 or 15 years. There's just no evidence for that. Historically, real estate is one of the most solid investments really in the history of the United States. So no, personally, I do not see any significant housing market collapse happening anytime in the near future, nor would I recommend you try to time something like that for your benefit, because everyone I encounter who does that ends up sitting on the sidelines indefinitely. You're making the biggest purchase of your life. You want to make sure you're doing it intelligently and you're not overpaying and you're getting great value. But that being said, I don't think this is a great question to ask. I don't think it's a great or appropriate question to ask, will it be a good time to buy real estate? Why is that? Number one, you cannot time the market. Now, this goes against, our instincts about getting the best deal. We want to time things. We want to wait to the best time to make our purchase for our advantage. But that assumes you can really predict what's going to happen. And anyone who tells you that is lying. Okay, these are my thoughts about the market as a professional. I could be completely wrong. No one has a crystal ball. And I really don't think it's a good idea to have in your head that you can time the real estate market in any significant way. When you're looking at factors to buy, you need to look at your personal factors, not necessarily the market factors, okay? How stable is your job? What kind of house could you afford where even if you got fired, you could float the mortgage for 3 to 6 months until you get back on your feet, okay? Where can you purchase that would be a good safe area for your family that will likely increase over time? So all the factors you should be considering for if it's a good time for you to buy, in my mind, are personal factors and not necessarily market factors. The reality is, this may sound funny to say, you may disagree, I pretty much always think it's a good time to buy real estate in the United States. Historically, it's one of the best performing assets across all things that you could put your money into. It's really only gone up except for those few instances that we just discussed. Now, this assumes that you're going to purchase smartly. You're going to work with a professional to not make a purchase over market value. You do need to make a purchase in line with the market value. You don't want to overpay. Of course, you want to buy in an area that is growing, not stagnating or decaying. You want to buy in an area that's got a strong trajectory for the future based on the location, quality of schools, amenities, distance to different things. Of course, these are all factors that you definitely should consider. And the last factor I would say is the home a good product, right? Because homes in some sense are products that are bought and sold. Okay, are you buying a good product? What is a good product? A good product is not too different from other products in the case of real estate. So you don't want to buy a product that limits the potential consumer base when you go to sell it. So you don't want a drastically unique home that's not practical for people's purchases. That could end up stinging in the future when you go to sell. So you do want to make sure you're buying a good product that most consumers would be happy to purchase from you at some point in the future. So those are all personal factors that you have a lot of control over. They are not big market factors that are affected by other random things in the economy that you have no control or knowledge of. So is it a good time to buy is not the right question to ask in my opinion. The right question to ask is, what is my financial situation? Is this a smart move for me? Is this overly risky? Can I do this with a low amount of risk and a high potential for reward? So those are my thoughts when it comes to, will 2022 be a good time to buy or sell real estate? Of course, with the massive shortage of supply that we have, it is a historically good time to sell. Now, if you're in your home thinking about selling, you have no incentive to leave, maybe that is the one circumstance where you can try to time the market. If you just have no outside influences on when you need to sell, you can just do it at your convenience, then yeah, maybe you do wait till the top of a cycle like the one we're in now. I would consider, if that's the case for you, you seriously consider doing it now because we are near at the top of this market cycle. But outside of that, like I said, timing the market is not a wise approach. So yes, I do think 2022 will be a fantastic time to buy real estate, especially in Atlanta because of how much we're growing, how much appreciation I expect homeowners to see based on all the factors that I've briefly mentioned. So there you have it, my thoughts on what the real estate market in Atlanta will look like 2022. No, there's not going to be a big crash. There's not going to be any drastic reduction in prices or increase in supply. It's going to hold pretty steady. We're going to have small increases in interest rates at the end of the year, hopefully a leveling off of the increase in prices, and hopefully a solid increase in the amount of supply so that we can have a more balanced market that works for everyone. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope it provided you with some value, insight, and knowledge and just generally helped you. Again, we would love to hear from you. If you need any help buying or selling homes in the Atlanta area, you can book an appointment with me today using the Calendly link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and until my next video, I'll see you next time.